The Halo series is something I had missed out on until recently. There were a handful of years in my youth where the OG Xbox was my primary console. As I've talked about previously in my Call of Duty Zombies video, my experience trying to play shooters with the Duke as a kid was nothing short of frustrating.
You try popping Nog off of dinosaurs with this big old Duke of a con.
I'd played most other Xbox exclusives. I loved Fable and the underrated gem Kingdom Under Fire, but Halo was what Xbox was known for. It was the staple franchise, and up until recently, I'd never given it a fair chance. As a kid, I was very cynical towards the sci-fi genre. Other than Star Wars, it all looked the same to me. Killing aliens and spaceships just seemed cliche and didn't appeal to me at the time. Which I find funny since the fantasy games I loved were all relatively cookie cutter as well. I probably collectively put more polygonal skeletons back into the ground than the entire population of California. I've since grown to love the sci-fi genre. Alien and Blade Runner are some of my favorite movies ever made, and before I was to play Mass Effect, I figured I should give this franchise a shot first. The Halo series has been in my backlog forever, and recently I'd moved very far away from home and all my friends. Working part-time has meant I've had full days to catch up on this franchise, and I have a handful of things to say about it. Halo Combat Evolved. A game originally developed by Bungie to be an Apple exclusive was presented by Steve Jobs at Macworld 1999, and it looked like this.
But this is one of the coolest I've ever seen. This game is going to ship early next year from Bungie, and this is the first time anybody has ever seen it. It's the first time they've debuted it. And so I'm very happy to welcome on the stage
Master Chief.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
The studio was bought by Microsoft the next year, and Halo was set to be a launch title for the original Xbox. This game was so popular that when its successor, Halo 2, came out, it made more money day one than any media release ever before it. Halo 2 made more money than the Titanic release, more money than any of the Lord of the Rings movie releases, and more money than World of Warcraft made in its first month, and it launched just a few weeks later. Not so fun fact, that day one revenue is less than half of what Jeff Bezos makes in one day. I figured if I'm going to play a series, I should play it in order. I bought the Master Chief Collection on PC, and my quest began on the first game. I'd played Halo Combat Evolved before through co-op in a friend's basement, but since we pulled an all-nighter, I didn't really remember much of the game at all. It felt like a forgettable space shooter that I just wanted to finish so I could go to sleep. I figured I needed to give it a fair shot, so I played through solo, and this game had my ass straight up enchanted. I fell in love with the landscape and sounds. It felt great on a keyboard and mouse. I even found myself getting engaged with some of the lore and world building, which I didn't expect at all. I like playing with the original graphics setting, as it felt more in tune with the art style, even if the audio is pretty dated. This game left me with a lot of questions, which is great. I wondered what Covenant society must be like, and the different species of aliens and how they coexist. I wondered how the Flood worked. I think the twist with the Flood was probably the turning point for me, where I was like, oh shit, this is really cool, and there's a lot more depth to this than I thought.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing in the nurse's office?
I threw up.
I didn't waste any time getting into Halo 2. I was pretty hyped to see what came next, and I played through the whole thing in one session. This game added dual wielding, which is super fun, especially with the Needlers. I also really enjoyed the story. Learning more about the Covenant and their religion was cool, but the most awesome part of that, and maybe my favorite part of the whole campaign, is when you get to know and play as the Arbiter. I had no idea this was going to be in the game, and it was a rad surprise. The Arbiter is essentially the Master Chief of the Covenant. He was the commander and control the units you fight in the first Halo game, and in Halo 2, you see the consequences of his failure caused by you, the player, on Halo. I think the contrast between how these factions treat a hero's victory or loss in these cutscenes back-to-back is awesome, and it's hard not to root for the Arbiter after seeing how harsh and fanatical Covenant can be to what is essentially their Master Chief equivalent. As the Arbiter, you get to use an energy sword, which is awesome. And when that's not happening, you're watching cutscenes of space politics, which is great if you're a fan of Star Trek or new to the Halo games.
Politics, how tiresome.
The only story advancement I thought was sincerely lame was the reveal that the Flood is controlled by a single organism. I kind of liked the mystery behind it, maybe thinking they were like the xenomorphs from Alien sort of thing. I don't know. At least he looks cool, and there's also some incredible voice acting going on here.
There is much talk, and I have listened through rock and metal and time. Now I shall talk.
While doing research for this video, I found out Peter Moore, the head of Xbox at the time, got a tattoo of the November 9th release date to show at E3 2004. This is the coolest thing anybody has ever done. The multiplayer of Halo 2 is something I missed the heyday of, but its influence has been unavoidable. The game mode-based matchmaking is in pretty much every online FPS now. Without Halo 2, Xbox Live and overall console gaming wouldn't have become what it is today, and my many hours grinding Diamond Camo and Black Ops 2 in 7th grade would have never happened. And I wouldn't trade those hours for the world. So, thanks, Halo 2. I'm glad I played these games after they all came out, so I didn't have to wait another 3 years after the cliffhanger ending of Halo 2. The story of Halo 3 takes place just a bit after the ending of the last game, after Master Chief falls from space for the 3rd time in the series. I really like the jungle environment in the first level. Shit, I like most of the environments in this game. All of them are unique and memorable. Of course, games increase overall visual fidelity with each new release, but the stunning visuals of Halo 3 have more to do with art style and design than graphical enhancement, and I love it. The most insane twist is this game is not a shooter. It's actually a romance game where Master Chief falls in love with his holographic waifu.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Hey, Cortana. I was just about to go into cryostasis. I know we couldn't cyberlink tonight, but hey, it's alright. Good night, girl. See you tomorrow. Master Chief, out.
I can't say I enjoyed this game more than Halo 2, but it's at least on par. Since this game is more about gameplay than story, I'm disappointed they did away with the boss battles from Halo 2, since with the new technical capabilities of the Xbox 360, they could have probably done a much better job if they stuck around. But since it's not essential to the Halo gameplay loop, at least for me, I understand. Still, they clearly approached making this game in a different way with new hardware, and you can feel it. The scale of battles are much larger than this game's predecessors, which is great. I honestly like the ending too. I expected the story to wrap up with the death of Master Chief, but it ends just as the first game begins, with our protagonist going back into cryosleep until the world needs him again.
Cryogenic array. Most residents must vacate.
The series really blew me away and was much more fun than I expected. When I set out to play these games, I thought they'd feel dated and cheap, but I can safely say, without the burden of rose-tinted glasses and nostalgia, the Halo games, or at least the original trilogy that I played through, have stood the test of time. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe. I got more of these coming. I really like making these documentary-style kind of videos about these games I like. I'll also make some goofy ones with my friends, like the Splitgate video. I don't know, whatever I feel like. I kind of want to do a quality over quantity type of thing on this channel, so stick around if you want to see more.